Greetings, Toffees. Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Frontier. We are very excited this episode to bring you our 2024-25 Everton team assessment, part 1. This is going to be a multi-part deep dive, and today will be an overview of the squad's performance relative to the rest of the league. We're going to go through all the different areas, attack, midfield, defense, creation, all of that good stuff. In later parts, we're going to go position by position and discuss potential targets for Angus Kinnear and company this summer. Might even have a little bit of a teaser on that front for you guys towards the end of this episode, so stay tuned. Before we get into it, just a reminder that if you enjoy the show, leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. We appreciate it. Follow us on socials, join our Discord. All of those links are in the description. And without further ado, let's just get into it because it's going to be a big monster episode, probably several monster episodes. If you're not familiar with the team assessment, it's something we used to do on the old ATP. This is our 6th year of doing it. And in doing this, we use data from a bunch of different sources, FBref, Y-Scout, because Ryan's fancy, Who Scored, FOTMob, etc. And really excited to just dive into it. But before we get into the numbers-heavy stuff, there's been some news since our last episode. And we want to take some time to talk about the personnel moves to consider before we get going on the specific squad stuff. So I'll hand it off to whoever wants to take it from here to get into the first bit.
Okay, yeah, I'll take it from here. Of course, everyone was looking at Monday like Christmas morning, right, hoping to be pleasantly surprised from the news. And I think for the most part, nothing too crazy happened outside of, I would say, the loans. So pretty much from like just a housekeeping standpoint, none of the loanees outside of course, Charly were basically kept. Angus talked about just thanking everyone for their contributions, as well as David Moyes. Just to clarify that doesn't mean that they might come back in a different role, whether that be another loan or whatnot. But in terms of the options exercised, none of them were exercised, right? In terms of guys out of contract, Ashley Young and Abdoulaye Doucouré we know of, but we're still kind of waiting on the futures of Michael Keane and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, right? So guys to watch. In terms of guys staying, and kind of perfect timing for us guys in terms of today filming this, of course, Everton Player of the Season and Everton Players Player of the Season, so what the players voted. Fabrizio Romano reported that Gana Gueye will sign a new deal at Everton next week, valid for the next 2 years. Verbal agreement in place until June 2027, waiting to get it sealed. I always love Fabrizio. He just says the same thing in 3 different ways. But yeah, a 2-year deal. I want to do a roundtable discussion because it deserves it. What do we think of the deal?
You should go with the hillbilly first.
Yeah, I was called a hillbilly for saying Everton should do everything possible to retain the services of Idrissa Gana Gueye. I tweeted that not 2 hours before the announcement from Fabrizio and other outlets, The Bobble, etc., came out saying that the deal is effectively done, and I couldn't be happier. I mean, we've been talking about it all season. How many times was he first on the list for strong performances? And you'll see in the numbers, I mean, it just vindicates that completely. He is the total focal point of the team. He holds everything together. His energy, his relentlessness, his technical ability defensively, his ability on the ball, everything about him I thought was just so good this season, and didn't see any kind of signs of decline except maybe a couple times towards the end where you can understand maybe getting a little fatigued. But I am over the moon that this happened. I was a little worried. There were some rumors about Paris FC coming in, maybe trying to swoop him away. But you have to think any competent guy on the recruitment side would have said, we got to do what we can to keep him. And I think the 2-year deal is just the byproduct of what you have to do to retain a player like that. He probably wouldn't be that interested in a 1-year deal. And, opens the door for if he has another season next year as good as he did. You don't even have to worry about the end of the season ramifications of that. So I am thrilled. I think it sets the foundation for a really strong summer of squad building. So looking forward to it. And the biggest name on the list, I think, is taken care of, and we can rest easy.
Yeah, there's a numbers game in midfield, too. We just don't have many in there. And certainly no one that performed like him. Wait until we get into the center mid, defensive mid discussion and his numbers. I mean, we'll go through them some in the team assessment, too. I mean, they're outrageous. He is, easy, probably a top 10 midfielder in the league, which is unbelievable at his age. And you just don't see signs of decline. And even so, he's in essence a free. We're not paying a fee for him. For me, what's important is his ability to attract talent as well. Like he's Agent Ghana, bringing people in. And I think it's really important, too, knowing that Moyes is comfortable with a more multicultural squad. I think he's going to be key to helping us recruit players African of descent in France, too, where there's so much talent. I think it's a good opportunity for him to do that. And he's trusted by Moyes, I think, at this point, too. So kind of part of a leadership cadre, shall I say. That being said, it does affect a little bit of who we recruit and how we kind of surround him with, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But he was also not the only piece of good news we've gotten in terms of the should they stay or should they go.
You got to let Shan speak his piece on Ghana first before we move too far along here. Shan.
I'm sorry. I mean, we should have just gone first, you being the hillbilly and all.
All right,
well,
first
off,
I told you guys that.
Can we talk about other topics like cultural appropriation?
No.
Okay.
Well, in terms of cultural appropriation, I think Ghana's perfect, right? One of the many midfielders we seen that celebrates Ramadan and still does a great job for us.
It's inhuman.
I think, to your point, James, I just feel like he embodies Everton. He is such a class act in terms of Agent Ghana. I feel like, Ryan, you hit the nail on the head. It's just kind of one of those positions where I think, you're a bit devastated to lose the human Ghana, of course, the second time, right? But I think I just really wanted him to play in the new stadium. Like, I just feel like he is one of the kind of key figures that I had, like Pickford, like JB, and
feels
like
right,
some of these other guys. Yeah, it feels right.
Do you see a risk in a 2-year deal though? Like it seems like
not at all.
No.
Yeah, and the only reason I say that is because let's just say worst case scenario, he starts to kind of falter a little bit. I still think he's a good depth piece in the second year, right? I just think, as you said, center mid is just such a big position for us. I still think there's going to probably be a place where we need to invest in it, right? Whether that be, but it at least gives us a little bit of option whether to get that surefire starter that we'd probably try to get in another position. It's just him being, I think, also signed so quickly, right? It is good for the club, right? It just allows us to kind of get some of the things that we can control out of the way, which for Everton purposes is usually pretty slow.
The other thing to add, people didn't understand how Paris FC were in for them. You may want to go check out the net worth of the guy who owns Paris FC. You might realize why and how they could afford, regardless of financial fair play. And yeah, I mean, look, to me, fine. Next year, if we're in better position and he gets a big deal, we'll take the money and run if that's what he wants to do. But I mean, we just don't have the players. Sorry, I segued a little early. Totally fair, James. But I'll let someone else take the runner with this one. I think this is a total no-brainer decision, but I'm glad it looks like it's coming to a quick realization.
Yeah, another signing, another thing low on the list, or high on the list rather, for Everton to take care of early on in the summer. And the Bauble and the Athletic reporting it today, Everton are now set to sign Carlos Alcaraz after reaching an agreement with Flamenco, saying it's a 4-year deal. $15 million, right around the range that we've heard reported. And we've said it for the last several weeks on the pod. Just absolute no-brainer at that price for a player with his ceiling, with his potential. And another position that we have to worry a little bit less about, knowing that it's in good hands. And you're talking about a player with Ghana at maybe the peak of his abilities, a player who I don't even think is really even close to what he could become in a few years. So it's just a really smart piece of business from the old recruitment team to even have that deal on the table, to set the table for the Friedkins to come in and just pick it up and continue. And I'm very thrilled that Charly's going to be, I think, a regular contributor under Moyes at the new stadium.
Yeah, I think Ryan did a really good job of making sure that Thelwell and Dan get credit for this one. And of course, I give credit to the current team for not being idiots and signing him. But, and then I think part of the rationale from what it seems like on why the deal might have taken some time, of course, just making sure, let's just say if he got injured, right, you wouldn't want to exercise the option, but also installments, right, on how you pay that. So, of course, I'm sure they're trying to be as creative as they can, right, and test the boundaries of Flamengo. But I think for us, as we've talked about, no-brainer. He adds, some flair, some dynamism in our team. Of course, getting a South American on Everton, right? It feels like years, and so it's nice to keep the one that we have. And I think it's just another kind of, we talk about Ghana, right? But this could be kind of another, pillar for us to kind of continue to tap into that market and get some of those players. So well done by Angus and the team that's there. Thank you for not messing this up.
Nice little legacy left by the old guys,
Yeah.
too. I know. I think that's something that, you may not see a tweet about it, but I know they're pretty happy about it. I also love the fact that we'll continue to see the South American Morrissey in full effect. We'll see the nonsensical comparisons to Tim Cahill every header. I went back and looked. Cahill almost scored half his goals with his head.
Yeah, that's kind of his thing.
Unbelievable, right? Yeah, they're not particularly similar, but if Charly keeps scoring some header goals, nothing wrong with that. Charly is good with his head, for the position. But either way, yeah, it just kind of seals that one side of the pitch, too. He has some positional versatility. He's still young. I think this is a no-brainer, but I think what's really nice, 4-year deal, too, that's nice, too. The nice part about this is it makes our analysis a lot easier because now we don't have to speculate. So, I was hoping. I'm just glad it got resolved fairly quickly, too. Be very interesting to see what happens with the rest of the free agents, but I don't think we've caught too many hints on what's still there. But I don't think any one of them, if any of the other guys didn't come back, I don't think we're sunk or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think these were the two that you say has to happen with a high degree of certainty. The rest, you maybe get the right deal and it could make sense. We'll see what happens with, I think Keane and DCL are the main outstanding guys, and we'll see what happens with those deals, whether they're allowed to leave or whether they're offered new terms or how that plays out. But I think it's time, guys. I think we get into it. I think we dive into the numbers. So buckle up, everybody. We're going to get into it here. We're going to start with an overall overview of Everton's performance at a very high level. Of course, achieved 48 points this season, 14th in goal differential, 15th in expected points per Scout and Understat. Nice to see the alignment there. From Scout, 42 goals scored. That puts us 17th on 44 XG, 44.33 XG, which was 17th. So, alignment and positioning, but did slightly underperform our XG. Meanwhile, goals against conceded 44, which is good for 4th in the league. And XGA 52 also underperformed our XGA, which you'd prefer to see. That's 6th in the league XGA. Overall, not the season that maybe everyone was aspiring to, but one that I think everyone ended up pretty content with given how dramatically our fortunes turned around mid-season thanks to David Moyes.
Yeah, I think that gives you a lot of optimism, right? No one's surprised about these numbers, though, right?
No. Struggled to score a little bit. Defense was reasonably solid. Carried that over year.
Yeah, and we'll get into more of the details around the defense and why I assume we keep the same personnel. We should be pretty good. In fact, we might even be better. But the numbers since Moyes got hired are pretty striking, I think. 31 points in 19 matches, 9th in the Premier League in that time, 6th in expected points over that time. Now, I think it may be also because we played another match than some others, but still. 11th in goals. That's pretty striking when you go from, we were almost dead last in the league in goals to 11th under Moyes. And the XG was 11 too, so it wasn't a fluke. And you could just see it graphically. We got a little thing on here that kind of shows like the second he rolled in, just you see the spikes and it was a lot more interesting. Goals against still wasn't really affected. 19th, 19 goals against in 19 matches, 5th for the league, and XGA was even lower at 3rd. So, obviously that's a reason to be optimistic. I think, though, we'd be a little naive to say that that's easily sustainable with our personnel, and we certainly need to improve them. But the good part is, as we go through this analysis in certain areas, it won't be hard not to do. There's some other numbers, though, that I think are more befitting of a macro-level analysis that I think are kind of curious.
Yeah, so in terms of age, I think that's kind of the biggest one. 28.3, third oldest squad in the Premier League. West Ham, no surprise, and Fulham, I would say no surprise as kind of the only older squads. Want to kind of throw out a few ages, though, because I think going into next year we'll definitely be a lot younger, right? And that's no shot at Ashley Young at 39 years old. You're going to see Begovic fall off. He's 37. You look at Michael Keane, 32. So if he falls off, Seamus at 36. Decore also at 32, right? So, of course, if you look at the denominator, right, those guys kind of really can drive down the average age of the squad. So I would say kind of, you take those guys out. Of course, Ghana's kind of really the only guy that's going to stay at 35 and now 36. I actually think we're not in as terrible of a situation, right, with that specific number. So understand, for this year, it was a little bit kind of worse, but especially as we kind of go forward, you look at recruitment and kind of the profile that we're looking for and hope to look for. I see that getting in a lot better of a place. Possession 41.8 at 18th, no surprise there. Whether it be Deitch or even Moyes, right? We're not a possessing team. We don't really, from a personnel standpoint, have very few guys that kind of really align with that. Subs 130 fewest, no surprise there, right? In terms of both managers, right, in their patterns. 15 draws. I know we were on draw watch for the record. I am so pleased to say that we did not get it. In terms of but just to clarify the overall Premier League record, we did get first in the league for this year, one ahead of Palace and Arsenal. So
I mean, you don't score goals. That's what happens in those.
Yeah,
right?
You don't score goals and you defend pretty well. So that's a great combination, right, to get a bunch of draws.
That age is also, it can be pretty skewed by a couple people. Now, Ghana doesn't help that, but I mean, I care most that we have a core of some veteran guys that can kind of stabilize from a leadership standpoint. Young guys can be leaders too, but the older guys, you'd rather have be no-brainers. I mean, how many old guys do we have on the team that you're not comfortable with? Like Tark's solid, Ghana's solid.
Pickford's another one, right?
Pick's
where he's
solid.
third. Yeah, solid. Like
right. So not overly concerned
No.
that that's where the age is. And even if Seamus comes back, I mean, he's not going to be a key player necessarily, but his leadership will be there too. So there could be worse situations. And I think
we're getting good contributions from the older guys, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like
you're
it's not
talking
like
about-
some are improving. I mean, I think you could make an argument that
I don't know what's in
Pickford,
the
Ghana,
water.
even Tark have had their best seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about a squad that was built to steer clear of relegation, and you need some of that experience contingent in order to do that. I think, and also obviously the intense financial restraints we were working under. Those guys are cheap, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, somewhat. Ghana may not be as cheap going forward, but hey, the fee
cares?
was cheap. Yeah, Pickford's expensive too. Would rather allocate your cash to the guys that are contributing, and there's no question what you're getting from those guys. So, all right. As we get down into some of the subsections of performance, we're going to break down the team in a little more discrete level. We're going to also try and highlight some individual performances as well. Some of these guys we're going to ignore. Like, I could sit there and bag on Broja the entire pod, but that's just a waste of our time. And recognize we know some of these guys aren't coming back, but some of the numbers are interesting. I think they're complete. A lot of stuff is from Y-Scout. I think it was updated when I ran them. I'll get into the player stuff later. That might be the bigger issue. We're still going to look at team performances. So, okay, look, the obvious thing is we need goals naturally. No, doesn't take a lot of wizardry to figure that out. So figured let's start with the attack. It's natural. So a lot of these numbers are from Y-Scout. I mean, the numbers are pretty bad here. I mean, other than XG per shot, I mean, yeah, it's low. But I think the issue is some of the lack of volume here is pretty shocking. I mean, we're 8th in headed goals, 18th in goals from the right foot, 16th from the left foot. So, I mean, Dwight McNeil, what are you doing? From corners, only 2 goals from corners. I mean, that's just not, I think, good enough. I mean, there's some luck there involved, but we did have a goal from free kicks and 2 from pens, which is 18th. 6 from outside the penalty area. McNeil had 3. When we get into his spread in terms of XG, it's absurd. But look, I do think you have a couple guys that are clearly have shown some ability to put the ball in the net, especially when Moyes has joined, right? So that gives us some hope, right?
Yeah, I think there is some glimmers of hope and definitely at least somewhat of a foundation to build on. And I think at the top of that list is Beto, who second half of the season really showed an ability to score goals. Finished the season at 0.47 goals, non-penalty goals per 90, which is honestly pretty decent, about a goal every 2 games. Very solid. He was 11th in the Premier League for players with over 1,000 minutes, which is a really good return, especially given how little we created, which we'll talk about very shortly. He was just behind Ollie Watkins in that regard, who was 10th. No one with fewer minutes had more non-penalty goals than Beto. So that just shows you very good return for the time played. Njai also obviously led the team in goals with 9, 0.33 per 90, which is not a bad return. We know he was injured for a little bit, and we know how effective he was when he played. So those are two guys who I think, as I said, give you a bit of a foundation, pieces who you don't have to worry about replacing immediately, and actually I think would get better with better players around them.
Yeah, get closer to goal. I mean, think of how many NGIs he had to carry and really create it himself. And we'll get into shot creation here in a second. But first, let's look at shooting and shots in general, because it gets a little saucy here when we start looking at XG numbers, which aren't always perfect, but they're kind of fun. The shot volume was down too. Like, it's one thing to shoot a lot, and just shoot from distance, but that wasn't the case. I mean, it was under 9 shots per 90. It's 17th in the league. And then you look at the people who took the shots. Like, Dominic Calvert-Lewin led the team with 50 shots and didn't play half the year. Beto at 49, Njai 35, but then Decore 31, Jack 29, Lindstrom 28. Not many goals out of those guys. So Gana at 27. Interesting. Charly Alcaraz already has 26 shots for the year with 2 goals and 42% of his shots on target. We know he's got a good right foot. That's the guy I want shooting a heck of a lot more than Decore, who actually doesn't strike the ball that badly, but still, you get the point. 37.8% on target. Over 30% of Everton's shots were blocked per Yscout. That's the 6th most in the league. That doesn't surprise me, though. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have that many guys that can separate and really create their own shot. We have some guys with slower releases, too. 6th in headed goals. Liverpool's first, interesting. Only 5 shots on posts. Last in the league. Think about that. I don't think that stat is all that accurate, but I got to admit, I don't remember us hitting too many posts. 17th in shots outside the penalty area and only 17th in shots from open play. Guys, this is nowhere near the level of volume you're going to need to score more goals, right?
Well, I mean, this kind of goes to how undynamic our attack is, right? And I think the only person that seems like they have full confidence anytime they shoot is Gana, right? Which is not a good thing, by the way. DCL, of course, I'm glad that he was kind of taking shots. Unfortunately, he wasn't making many of them, and I know you'll get to it in a second. But yeah, I think this kind of really goes, we're very proud of the foundational pieces we have on the defense and even, somebody like Gana. But I think, outside of Beto and Njai, right, the creation and even just, I think the shots that they did take, right, you talked about it perfectly, Ryan, just kind of really echo a lack of separation, right? We don't have many guys that can really separate outside of Njai, and even then, right, we just didn't have much of a threat on either wing to give him, so he very much had to kind of play hero ball at times, especially under Dyche.
Yeah, and you kind of get into some more of the breakdowns, too. I mean, you're 12th in average distance, so we're not getting close ones. I said our XG per shot was high. I meant to say 5th worst, so it's really 16th. Want to clarify that. But that's the thing. If you don't take a lot of shots, you're hoping that they were at least quality shots, but we weren't even getting that. And I feel like last year we did get that. Just goes to show you how poorly Dyche, how little Dyche got from the team.
Yeah, we don't have the number here, but when Shan and I did the breakdown of, I think, Moyes after 10 games or so, that was one area where we did see an improvement. XG per shot had gone up, and average shot distance had gone, I think, down a little bit. Be interested to see that split because it was truly putrid under Dyche, but we know that we weren't necessarily still getting a lot of great shots. Now, you'd hope low volume, high quality, but it just didn't really work out for Everton. So you need to find ways to get into better positions to shoot the ball, without question.
Yep, and then I think one key element of this is the finishing, and everyone loves the non-penalty goals versus non-penalty XG stats, where people are judged by their finishing. And look, we're taking a lot of numbers from FB Ref. So some of these numbers, it's not the most sophisticated model, but it's the same model for everyone else. But I think in the past, we've not finished very well. And this season, same type of thing, negative 3.2. We were 14th in the league, in essence, in finishing. And all that does is compare like the average person with similar shots, how many goals they score versus how many goals you did score. Now, that being said, we had a couple just insane overperformers, though. I mean, like Dwight McNeil was 11th in the league in overperformance, and he barely played. He had 4 goals on 1.1 XG. I mean, shocking. What about Michael Keane at 16th? 3 goals on 0.6 XG.
Legend.
I mean, dude, you played the wrong position, son. Like, he'd make Will Keane look bad. And And then Njai, which I think is encouraging. He's 20th in the league, 9 goals on 6.2 XG. His expected post-shot XG, though, was only 7.69. That's what's pretty wild. Beto came in and went on a tear. And you look at him, you're like, well, he only had 8 goals on, XG. I think it's slightly over 8 now. But his post-shot XG was like 9 something. So, he was getting robbed some as well. So I think there's some good signs knowing that those guys are back. Maybe Keane's not, but those are attacking guys that are back. And really, if you think about those guys, I think those guys can finish pretty well. Unfortunately, though, and I hate to pick on the guy, should I do the honors or anyone else like to do it?
I'll
take this honors. One. Oh, you want? Yeah, Ryan, go ahead. I
think you both should do the honors.
Well, okay. So I'll start with the stats from this past year. So Dominic Calvert-Lewin was the second worst finisher in the entire league, behind Savio at City. It was close, though, to his credit. So Dominic Calvert-Lewin was negative 3.7. And I think what's really fascinating is he had 3 goals out of an XG of 6.75. So maybe you thought, all right, he was a little unlucky. His finishing was fine. Well, no, his post-shot XG was still under 5. Now, still 3 goals is unlucky, but and I would, this can happen in single seasons, right? I mean, it's still hard to have a high enough volume of shots for it to even out over time. And almost no one consistently outperforms their XG. So in many ways, I think the generation of XG to whatever level the striker can help generate XG, it's normally a team thing, can be helpful. But I mean, there's a bit of a history here.
Yeah, and it's something we've talked about on the pod as a concerning trend that has really showed no signs of slowing down or stopping or reversing for that matter. And last 3 years per FBref, Dominic Calvert-Lewin has scored 14.1 fewer goals than his XG. Underperformed by 14 goals. He has 9 non-penalty goals over 3 years from an XG of 23.1. 9 against 23.1. That is shocking. And yeah, there's some luck. There's some luck that plays into that. Okay. But his post-shot XG is 19.1, again, against the 23.1. So it's still underperforming. So his finishing, there's still a discrepancy between his finishing and the average that you use to calculate the statistic. He's only scored 12 goals. It's still bad, though. And it's still, again, this is a 3-year trend. You have to say it's becoming more of a characteristic of his game than anything else. And it's unfortunate, but that's, he brings a lot of other things to the team, but I don't know how you can really look past this and really give him any sort of meaningful money. And we won't get into his contract situation now, but I think it adds a lot of credence to the thought process of this. Probably time for this guy to try a different club.
And look, I mean, there's plenty to someone's game other than finishing. I mean, but it is probably more important with center forwards than anyone else.
Yeah.
The numbers are what they are. I mean, even though there's some bad luck there, like 12 goals off a post-shot XG of 19 is pretty unlucky. But still, I mean, come on, man, his XG was over 25. It's just, at some point, there becomes enough volume. And look, you could see it with your eyes. What good is someone who can get in behind as well as he does, ignoring the offsides? Beto has a lot of offsides too, so I'm not defending him. If he can't finish. And he does struggle to finish when he runs in behind and stuff, to chip the ball over keepers and just find ways to score. It doesn't mean he can't score some good goals. It doesn't mean he's a terrible center forward. I think he's probably better as kind of a box-type center forward. And if I'm a big club that has the ball and it's dwelling in there the whole time, I might take a chance on him. Just have him come on in the last 20 minutes, have him play some cup matches. He's a good player. But yeah, I mean, at this point, he's clearly asking for big wages. He's coming off multiple reigns of injury. I don't know. It's just too much risk for us, I think, and I just go with the sure thing with Beto. But we will talk about center forwards. I don't know if we can go into season just with him and Chermiti. But there are also some underperformers. I think a couple of these guys are a little surprising, too, because they're fairly technical players.
Yeah, and we're kind of going into to start the king of technical, but kind of the master of not finishing in Jack Harrison, and somebody I truly do like. He was 9th, 1 goal from 3.5 XG, but basically kind of 1.07. It's just strange, for that, for him specifically, and you kind of saw it in many of the games. It was just the eye test doesn't fail you there either with Jack. Just even the goal that he did score, I believe it was just kind of a deflection, against Wolves. So And then you look at Jesper, right? And I think we've talked so much about Jesper in terms of his lack of finishing. 0 goals from 2.1 xG, and then an xGOT of 1.27, right? So you look at that, and it's just both of those guys, I think we didn't get the return we wanted. And when we talk about kind of limitations of the squad, you kind of just really look at the wings, and of course we'll get into it in terms of the transfer analysis. But really a portion of the squad that we really, really need to kind of get more production of, especially on the offensive end.
You need your wingers to contribute some offensively, and unfortunately ours just proved not to be that good at scoring goals. Now, they had a lot more defensive responsibilities than many other wingers in the league, but you still got to do it on both ends, and it's really important for our forward players to score. You just look at Njai, how much his production helped us. Didn't get the same from Jack, unfortunately. And
no, and Njai was defending too. I mean, you can't argue it like it wasn't there. These guys are a little surprising though. I mean, I think Jack prior to this was definitely a good finisher before Everton. He's clearly a technical guy. His first touch is unbelievably good, and Lindstrom's really technical too. So just a little disappointing, I think. Lindstrom's a little maybe robotic. I think that might be part of the issue. I will say this though: beware of the XG gods, because no one exceeds their XG consistently, at least not to this extent. So some of these guys, you look at the numbers and you might not expect the same performance next year. And a couple of these first two guys, someone's probably paying a pretty penny for.
Yeah, who Ryan's referring to is Brandon Buemo, right, who obviously had an incredible season, but he outperformed his XG by 7.5. Matheus Cunha, who looks United-bound. I don't know what kind of is going on with his agent's head, but good luck. 6.4. And then Chris Wood, of course, had a really, really good season. Not surprising, too, in terms of Forest, the XG gods hitting them kind of square on the head at +6. And then, look at this guy, Alex Iwobi. Had a very good season for Fulham. I don't blame you, at 4.3. Right, so I think, it's kind of funny because you'll see, all these guys, I would say, we kind of hold in high regard. But even some of the better players in the league, right, could easily outperform their XG, either just by individual brilliance or bad goalkeeping.
Yeah, it happens. And look, a lot of these numbers aren't just about the finishing where we were below average. The generation of shots was the lowest element of it. And it's not a surprise when we start to move into the creation numbers. Like, yes, we could use some better finishing. Yes, we need better goal generation, but people don't just, like, if you buy 5 strikers in the summer, it doesn't guarantee you more goals, despite some people out there that I'm convinced think it does. Like, this guy scored 10 goals, this guy scored 10 goals, this guy scored 10 goals. Oh, we got 30 goals this year. I mean, it doesn't work that way, folks, but I know that's surprising to some, but they
United might be testing that theory this summer, Ryan, so
they probably don't listen to this podcast, the people that think this way at this point. I think we've alienated all of them. You never know. God, that gives me flashbacks to doing the YouTube with all the responses we used to get in the comments. Anyway, getting into the creation numbers. Yeah, these are all low from almost every aspect. None of these are really great. We're using shot created actions as a metric from FB Ref, so it includes like hockey assists, second assists, that type of thing. P90, we're at 17th. Not even 19. Live pass, dead passes, dead ball situations, rebounds via shots, just being fouled and then the ensuing shots. Defensive actions like 17th, 16th, 18th, 17th, 15th. Via take-ons, 13th, slightly up. Geez, I wonder who could have done that. Dwight actually had a couple of those too, even if he was shooting from like the moon and they were going in. The XA numbers, 2 other creation numbers, 16th assist, 17th. So even though it's the dumbest stat of all time. And so look, when you break down in some individual aspects, there are some guys that are capable of creating on this team, but not many. And I think the first one it starts with is Dwight McNeil. So I've no doubt missing Dwight at times hurt. And you look, we only scored 2 goals off corners all year. So, that's part of it. And, we all saw the set pieces. We can't blame Charlie Adam for all of it. Some of the delivery was terrible.
We can try.
We can try. We can try. But when you break down Dwight's numbers, not that many goals are scored from set pieces. So look, he's the best on the team with 4.73 SEA per 90, which is a big number. Like, that's really impressive. But then you realize almost 1.5 of it per 90 was off dead balls, and that's second in the league per 90. That's not surprising, but But the guy had 6 assists to lead the team, but 3 of them were for set pieces. I mean, Charly had 3 assists in under 800 minutes, and that was from open play. Charly has a great right foot too, but like the way he runs with the ball and can create in there, I think he's a better situation. Now, when we get in the individual models, Dwight is going to look really good, but, no comment about him playing down the middle. But look, the point is that set piece production is fine, but like teams average this year almost 56 goals. Not even 6 were from corners. Just over 3 were from penalties, and 0.65 are from direct free kicks. So like the set piece situation, it's important. Like you want someone that's good on set pieces, and clearly this could have gotten us maybe a couple more goals, but the difference isn't that significant. So, I mean, to me, I think we really want to focus on guys that can generate from open play. We can't just rely on set pieces.
Yeah, the overwhelming majority of your goals are going to come from open play, and so that needs to be where you create your chances and where you're getting the vast majority of your goals from. That's just what it comes down to, and I think Charly Alcaraz goes a long way to starting to address that problem. He was at 3.89 SCA per 90. And only 2 of his shot-created actions came from set pieces. So a clearly capable player. We know he's good driving the ball forward, but also really good at creating opportunities for others once he gets in and around the box.
Yeah, and I think what's also interesting, you talk about set pieces, and let's just say if Dwight really does have a role on this team going forward, right, he might kind of end up being, more of a super sub role of somebody later in the match, right, to kind of provide that quality if we don't, address that need in the summer, right? Similar to maybe somebody like James Garner, right, if that's the case for him. As you mentioned, he's at 2.2, right, but 0.62 of it were from dead balls, right? So it's just you kind of look at those guys and, of course, the limitations of both of them. And if we want to improve, right, they aren't surefire starters in kind of, in a modern-day Everton, but they definitely can play a role.
Yeah, you got to get it from somewhere else, though, too. You know what I mean? Like, you look at Decore, he's at 2, basically. Ghana, I mean, what are you going to expect? A ton of creation from him? You may get some progression. We'll go through some of his numbers later. They are impressive. His pass numbers passing are really good. But him and Mangala, who is controlling matches a little bit, but both those guys are well under 2. Beto doesn't create a lot for his teammates. It'd be nice to maybe that's an option too. We'll get into the center forward position. But look at the fullbacks, man. I mean, Ashley Young's slightly over 2, but it's all set pieces. I mean, you're getting no creation from your fullbacks. Now, part of that is scheme. I didn't expect Jake O'Brien to go in there and start creating like a madman at right back. And Dyche, his fullbacks, barely do anything other than fire long crosses in. I also like the idea too, if we need to mix it up and throw a tactical twist and throw 3 in the back. I like Dwight McNeil, creating from deep or on the left wing. I think that's an interesting experiment. I mean, and we'll see if Dwight can play on the right side or not. That would solve some problems, but he's just not a massive generator from open play, but he can be useful out there. So it's good that he's there. But yeah, I mean, just look at the live passes. I mean, from SEA from live passes, Decore and Ghana both led the team at 52. That is not a recipe for success. Like Njai's only at 49. Now Charly, live pass SCA, 2.82 per 90. So there's got to be more from other positions, regardless. Another area I think that we're deficient in, at least as the collective squad, is while we created some shots via take-ons, we do not have enough guys that could challenge people via the dribble. Now that being said, Dyche we knew was like the anti-dribble. Not at the forward position maybe, but it just makes, we talk about possession numbers too. It's so critical to have guys that at least are a threat. And so people will back off them so we can control matches a little bit more, take a little bit more time, more control, and get players forward. So we'll talk about possession as well. We don't have the best passers on this team, but it's a heck of a lot easier to pass someone who they've backed off of. You know what I mean? So, okay, quick observation here. The dribble numbers are pretty low with one guy's exception.
Yeah, Everton, 17.24 per 90. That's good for 19th in the league, nearly dead last.
And also, keep in mind, I took these from Y-Scout. They have a little different metric and calibrate how they call like dribbling and 1v1s.
Yeah, so it's not like you're not trying to like necessarily beat someone like face up and go by them.
Yeah, it's not quite the take-ons you get at FB Ref, but they have numbers there too. Yeah, and I mean, if the success rate, 53.7%, 15th, that's not that bad. But I mean, look, one guy's a clear standout here.
Yeah, and it's going to come as no surprise to anyone that it's Iliman Ndiaye at 5.62 per 90, the dribble machine. And clearly he's very good at it, but I also think there's an element of we didn't have anyone in the squad anywhere near him, and we haven't really had anyone of his profile at Everton for several years now, so it was just such a breath of fresh air to see someone so capable at torching guys one-on-one, not just taking them on, but leaving them in the dust, leaving them in his wake. He's so strong in addition to his quickness that he made guys look silly all season.
I think part of the problem is, too, where he's doing it. Like, you want to see him carry the ball into the box. We'll get to those numbers in a second, our progression numbers. That's kind of how we've broken this up, and they're not very good. I mean, and how often has he had to pick it up from deep and really beat people and run with it? That's not necessarily ideal. It's good that he can do it. I mean, not every match are going to be on the front foot, but I think the other thing is, too, like, he's almost, he's over 5.5 here, and literally everyone is gone that's over 3. Like, Lindstrom, McNeil, 3.43 and 2.83, but they're both around 45% success rate. That's not good. Dwight can carry the ball, but he's not going to be able to create his own shot in close to goal. There's just no way. He can't separate, but he could carry it. I mean, Njai has 164 dribbles, 1v1 opportunities. No one else has over 100. And then you go back to look at those SCA numbers. We said it was 13th. There was 44 total SCAs via take on. 9 is Njai, Dwight has 6. I mean, yeah, it's just crazy. Fouls suffered. This is a stat I didn't know where to put, but I actually think it's really meaningful. We're only 16th in the league, under 9 fouls per 90. And think about how much, Njai got fouled a lot. So it's not necessarily a direct correlation between dribbling, but let's be honest, man, the fouls happen when guys are trying to go by people, and winning those battles, it matters. I mean, Pep doesn't even recruit a forward that can't dribble. You know what I mean? Some of the stuff matters. You've got to win your 1v1s. Getting people in those situations is key. So that's going to dictate what we're going to look for in certain positions for sure when we get into the models. All right. Crossing. This is another way to generate chances. Some of these numbers are mixed, some good, some bad. I think one particular individual numbers are pretty shocking. So, look, we're pretty accurate. Lots into the penalty area, but few into the 6. I don't know what that means. Typically, crosses, too, are a lot of the good teams get a ton of crosses, but it's all the low variety, the stuff that's high percentage chances. So, look, we're 11th in crosses per 90, but 2nd in success rate. 6th in crosses from the right flank. Pretty interesting, right? 13th from the left flank. 17th into the 6-yard box, only 61. So let's put that in context. Newcastle has 116. City with 112. Liverpool with 112. We had only 61, folks. Into the PA, 3rd. So we had a lot of crosses going into the penalty area, just not into the 6. So how about Mikalenko's numbers this year? I must say, I don't know if he's evolving at his age, but I feel like he showed some hints of attacking aptitude this year, more so than he's shown in the past. He led the team in number of crosses. His percentage completion was over 46, which is really, really high. And then you got guys like Jack Harrison that was like 33%, even though he can serve a ball. I don't know. What do we think? Is it of interest for us to get some guys that can cross the ball a little bit better? I would say for sure in a fullback position, don't we think?
Yeah, 1,000%, right? And to speak on Mikalenko, I think what's interesting with him is I feel like he always goes through this flow in a season, right, where you just absolutely cannot just fathom the idea of him playing for Everton in the future. But I think under Moyes, he did a pretty good job of having the stable production, both on a defensive and offensive end. Of course, you're never going to expect greatness from him on the offensive side of the ball, but you can kind of, remember more times than not where he put a decent ball into the box, or at least was in an advanced position, right, to get the ball and put it into the box. So I give him credit on that. And to your, kind of analysis there, Ryan, it's absolutely necessary for us to get guys that can cross the ball better. It's just another reason also, too, we weren't as clinical on set pieces, right? We had too many people that can't cross the ball in the match. Even when Dwight was in at times, right? The service wasn't there. So I think that's definitely a piece that we're going to look at, especially looking at the wingers.
He went almost like a month full of games without a single cross. It's kind of crazy. And then he had 10 against Forest, which is okay. But yeah, under Moyes, you could see this a lot more consistent. We just got up the pitch a little bit more, and you could see he could deliver an okay ball. It takes him a while to release it.
Loves a cross on the half or full volley. Mikalenko does. Loves bouncing out of there. And I do think he's the beneficiary a little bit of Njai in front of him, drawing a lot of attention from defenders, which gives him a little bit more space and time to serve a ball, and that you get better quality as a result.
It's a fluid game, right? It's a team construct. So That's not surprising, right? I mean, people are going to look better too. I mean, he's not that bad a player. He's going to look better with better people around him, no question. I don't know if that's the best match going forward, but he's got a year left on his contract. We already talked about staying or going on that one. So when we look at left backs, we're clearly going to go get one. It's just a matter of the profile. I think getting someone that's a little different than him might be smart. Okay, let's move on to possession. So one thing to remember is that, for most of the year, even under Moyes a little bit, but Dyche for sure, his style was long balls. We were decently successful at it, but it avoids ball losses. But, it's not getting touches in the box or generating goals and chances very consistently. And I mean, would anyone argue that we're a good passing and retention team? I mean, we're 18th in possession, but like 19th in pass accuracy. I mean, pass rate, like last, meaning as passes per minute of possession. 6th most in long passes at almost 58%. So that's 8th, and that's fairly accurate. But, I just, when you watch the team, yes, we're resorting to long balls too, but I'm under no illusions that this team is going to be like playing ticky-tacky any time at all. I mean, you like to watch a match and really appreciate passing, you have to consider right foot, right weight, and we have such lack of precision in this team, I think. I'm not crazy for saying that, am I? It's pretty obvious.
No, if you asked a lot of our fan bases where we ranked out of 20 teams, they would say 25th. I mean, yeah, you're not wrong at all. And I think the frustrating part, too, is I actually think there are some very skilled players on our team, right? Of course, I hate to say this, you see it in the training videos, right? These guys aren't completely devoid of talent, but there are matches, especially under Dyche, you really saw it, where there was just no fluidity. There was just no movement whatsoever. And the passing, and depending on the day, right, you'd have, let's say Decore, right, is somebody that can either be as clinical with the pass or as detrimental with the pass. And unfortunately, we have more guys than not that on their day are just really, really struggle.
At least he tries to play fast, though. I mean, I'll give him a little credit 100%. For that.
But the precision, I think, that you alluded to, Ryan, super important, especially at the highest level of the Premier League. You're talking about a guy who receives the ball on his right foot and can immediately turn and go versus having to move and cover it and bring it in with his left, and it takes that fraction of a second to get in a position where he can move the ball forward. It just slows the game down and makes it look a lot more clunky when you can be precise and very highly accurate. The smoothness and fluidity with which the team can play, it just goes through the roof. So, you look at something like pass accuracy, which is a super binary thing, like did you complete the pass or not? But there's even a sub-level of that, which I think Everton, you don't necessarily see it come out in the numbers, but Everton are severely lacking.
Yeah, and as a result, teams tried to pressure. There's no question. Now, I think Moyes' team did a lot better dealing with the pressure. They had a little more idea on how to deal with it. It took them a little while, but I think it was fine. But we had the 7th highest PPDA against us. People were pressing us higher. And obviously the lowest teams are City, Liverpool, and Arsenal. Those people back off them because they can keep the ball. You press them, they'll kill you because they can really pass the ball at all positions, really. And I think we have some guys that aren't that bad for their position necessarily. But look, the converse to this is we're 11th fewest in ball losses, and that's the trade-off. That being said, there's some bad numbers in here too. I expect the center forwards in these schemes to not keep the ball well, but Harrison and Lindstrom's ball loss numbers are just really, really high. Dwight's at the end of the year were good, but we know his numbers were terrible when he played the 10, which shows you how good he is at retaining the ball otherwise. Charly's are mediocre, but he was running with the ball and taking chances, and some of the other guys are lower, but that matters. And I think turnovers really matter. Still think that's a really big stat. So FB Ref breaks those into a couple different ways. They have miscontrols, which is just losing the ball, or not controlling a ball well that comes to them. Because it's not just passing, it's also the first touch and accepting a pass. That matters almost as much as the passing in some cases. And then being dispossessed, which is when we're trying to do something, we just lost the ball. So for the miscontrols, again, the center forwards are high. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was 10th in the PL in terms of miscontrols. Beto is 18th. And no one has more than Beto in fewer minutes either. So that shouldn't be entirely surprising when they're that isolated. But yeah, there are other guys too that are, not great too. Like Delop's not great. Onuachu is not great. That's not surprising. And that's kind of what you get when you got guys that play that way. Now, in terms of dispossessions, we were the fourth most. But some of these guys get dispossessed a lot, like Newcastle, Spurs, City are 1, 2, 3 in the most dispossessions. Why? Because they're trying to take people on. Because they have to. They've got the ball. They're controlling the match. And fundamentally, Broja, Tim, and McNeil have a lot of these because this is where Dwight was trying to move and run with the ball a little bit. By the way, there are only 4 players worse than Tim per 90. However, 2 of them are Kudus and Doku, guys that can actually dribble. So, Tim, please, if you're listening to this pod, stop the immediate dribbling whenever you think you're in trouble and you don't know what to do. Like, that is not a good recipe. I'll tell you, if you just cut that out, some of the other stuff maybe you can deal with, but it's so bad. So look, the other part of possession that we're not talking about is just the ability to get the ball in the penalty area. And we're 17th in touches in the PA. The average in the league is 19, and we have almost 14. Like, guys, that's like someone mentioned something how, Delap wasn't as good as, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name, Vlad, whatever his name, the striker for Juventus that might be on the blog.
Oh, Vlahovic?
Yeah, Vlahovic. Sorry, Pardon me. He was a good finisher and everything too, but my point was, like, he didn't score that much, and he averaged more than 6 touches in the penalty area a match. Delap had 3. So, like, what are we talking about here? So the good part is Beto and DCL get around 5. That's good, but the other numbers are bad.
Yeah, Njai, the only other player that had over 3 per 90, and it's just barely over 3 per FB ref. Wisecout actually has him just under at like 2.43. But per Wisecout, no player has more goals with fewer touches in the penalty area per 90 than Ilman Njai, Delap being a close second at 2.47. So we know Njai, dangerous player. You just got to find ways to get him the ball in those dangerous areas. He'll make things happen. We didn't do it nearly enough.
Yeah, and just look at the touches and the distribution of them. Like, we didn't have many touches, period. I get it. But, like, touches in the final third, 16th. Middle third, 18th. Defensive third, 16th. We had the 13th most touches in the defensive penalty, or the 13th fewest touches in the defensive penalty area. So we were slightly better in that one, which means we took a lot of goal kicks. Yeah. Can we talk about offsides for a sec?
Yeah, please, because I know it was a raging problem early on in the season, and I think continued really throughout. 1.88 per 90, so nearly 2 offsides per 90, which is third most in the league. You could chalk that up a little bit. We're trying to get in behind. We're often trying to transition front to back or back to front really rapidly, but you got to stay on side, guys. You got to see the line. You got to time your runs, and that is not something that DCL or Beto really showed a capability to do.
I'm kind of surprised it's that low, though. Like, I thought it would be higher. Like, and I say that in just
higher.
You say that, but like I feel like the number, if I had to guess, would have been 2.5, 3, like per match. It just because I do feel like it comes in patches too. Like, I think of even
teams press high and play certain schemes.
Yeah. So.
I mean, Dominic Calvert-Lewin finished with 27, 1 off the lead behind Chris Wood. Guess how many more games Wood played? I mean, he was at over 1.5, slightly over 1.5 per 90. I mean, he's first in the league in that. My comment in the doc is once Sean Dyche has touched you. Beto wasn't low either, and some of this is a system. But yeah, I mean, come on, man, you got to be more disciplined. I mean, the sad part is too, like, at least Beto taking a little bit of risk there. He's pretty good and kind of tricky at finishing some of those, at least we've seen. And that's not Dom's strong suit, too. That's the funny part. I would argue Dom's better at dropping back between the lines and facilitating buildup and, kind of sending it to someone else and then getting on the end of one. Like, why are you? Maybe it's running in the channels, which he does well, but I don't get that, man, at all. Anyway, okay, I think we beat possession into the ground, like clearly not getting the ball in the box in any level of meaningful volume. And we've got guys running take-ons from deep. It's just not good, right? It's not good. So let's talk about progression, because the way we handled this before was just long passes, bypass the midfield. And honestly, some people benefited from it. I think it made James Garner life a lot better, frankly. He's not necessarily a great on-the-ball guy, but we have got to find players that can get the ball up the pitch and into the final third in the penalty area via the pass first. So let's look at the pass. So what do you think our progressive passes number was?
Probably pretty bad given our personnel. I think we landed, second to worst in the league?
That's correct. How about that?
How did I know that?
Some of this is scheme, sure. But I mean, Ghana's got the most on the team by a mile at 145. Then Mikalenko, Young, Dukes. Alcaraz and McNeil, highest at almost 5 per 90 for Charly and almost 4.5, more than 4.5 for McNeil. And it does kind of speak to maybe Dwight playing deeper might be helpful. I just not down the middle necessarily, but he can pass the ball. Successful passes into the penalty area. We were 16th. Mikalenko had 40, led the team. McNeil had 36. Now, some of these are dead ball pieces. So, that's successful passes into the final third, 15th. Not good again. Ghana leads the team by a mile with 154, 4.5 per 90. So think about that. And Ghana in this past has been pretty good. And so we're going to break down his numbers in a while, but no one else can even come close to that. I mean, this is an obvious area of improvement, right?
Yeah, I mean, Ghana 154. Mikalenko second with just over 100, 102. Branthwaite third with 86. Tark 83. So our defensive line, it's long balls, right? It's what it comes down to. Our whole back line, basically, and then Ghana being our progressive midfielder. Who would have thought?
Now, that being said, to counteract my accusations of you earlier, Ghana in the past has shown some pretty good progression numbers, and I think we've forgotten a little bit because we've bypassed the midfield, frankly. I mean, that's a lot of what it's been. Now, you saw it a little differently with Moyes. He felt like he was more influential with the ball. Imagine other people around him that can use him a little bit differently. So, in his last season with Everton, Ghana was 13th in the entire Premier League in progressive passes. 12th in the whole league in passes into the final third, successful passes into the final third. Now, that doesn't surprise me, but people remember the accusations were that he couldn't pass the ball forward, just ridiculous stuff. They don't track this stuff. With PSG in his first year, he was third in the league in progressive passes, and he didn't even play that much, and third in the final third passes successful too. That's in the entire league. I know, Farmers League. His second year, he's fifth in passes into the final third. So the point is, he's got some ability to do it, but I don't know if any of these other guys have the ability to do it. Maybe James Garner in a different scheme could, but he's not good at finding space and releasing the ball quickly. I'm not saying he can't be a part of the squad or anything too, but we got to do better in the midfield, and it'd be nice to maybe have fullbacks that could do it as well. We'll see. So again, we're 14th in progressive distance, but it's all long ball stuff. So, all right, let's talk about progression via the carry. I mean, if there was one category in the team assessment that you say we were bad in, I mean, don't you think this would be the most obvious one?
Yeah, so you look at progressive carries, dead last, carries into the penalty area, dead last at 119. Mo Salah had 126 as lonesome. Jeremy Doku had 109.
Wait, hold on. Mo Salah is not a team, correct?
Yes, yeah. I mean, depending on who you ask, he could be a movement to some. Those neighbors are a bit crazy. But yeah, of course, Doku 109. City had over 400, right? Which is no surprise, but just kind of goes to the lack of quality we have at that side of the pitch. The crazy thing is that Njai, by his lonesome, has 32, right? Which, of course, is no comparison in terms of Mo Salah, but it's still 41st in the Premier League, so not awful, right? But you could get so much more out of him, right? So it's not like to say that that number's squarely on him. But no one else, as you said, Ryan, more than 17 on the team, right? So it just kind of goes to show that this team cannot carry the ball whatsoever when it comes to just even the skill or through pressure. Into the final third, 18th, Dwight and Charly, and then, talk about progressive carry distance, 19th, right? So just a really big opportunity for the team to improve. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, that stat I had to put that one in there. Mo Salah has 126 carries into the penalty area, and Everton as a team only have 119. Dear God, help us. Clearly, we have to do better. It's crazy, too. Njai having that many dribbles and that few carries. But he had so many more than everyone else on the team, and it's so obvious. You just watch it. Okay, enough about beating our putrid attack into the ground. I think we recognize that we need to get the ball in more dangerous areas. We need to be able to progress the ball. We've got to change as a team to a team that has some capability of not just hoofing it up and winning the ball and knocking it down. We need more production, better finishing, better attack, certainly in certain areas. Beto Njai, good stories. Charly, exciting. Maybe there's some pieces, but a lot of work to do in this area. However, and again, some of this is sacrificing attack to do it, but the defending doesn't look that bad.
No, I mean, this was actually, and we talked about it, Ryan, on our kind of Discord audio space of sorts, right? And when you look at goals against in the league, fourth lowest at 44, right? And you can't just kind of credit that to Deichball because David Moyes was here half a season as well. XGA of 52.04, which is sixth, and XGA per shot of 0.117, that's fifth. Mangala, believe it or not, best in the Premier League per 90 with players with more than 1,000 minutes per FB ref. Zero own goals, so congrats, Michael Keane. That is,
unbelievable. The Mangala stat's unbelievable. Think about that. For some reason, in on versus off, like he has just the lowest goals against XGA per 90 of anyone in the league. So like he is, I mean, it's totally a team stat, but like he is the best defender in the
He's
entire...
the linchpin. Everything revolves.
He was there
Mangala.
for every 0-0 draw.
I know, unbelievable. It's so true. It's so true. I love the zero own goals, man. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Some of the other stats are decent too. Like we gave up a lot more shots though, Sean, but the numbers aren't. I mean, I don't know. I think some of this is an indication we just play better defense.
Yeah, I mean, you go into shots against 10.57 per 90 at 12th, shots blocked. I'm sure Tark had a lot to do with that, but he isn't number one. 3.17, ninth most. 26.2 shots were blocked, third fewest. As we said, he's not number one. He is top three with 40. Nathan Collins is at 63 at Brentford. No one within 20 of him.
Taking
but
the
he
crown,
is a Burnley
baby.
product. He is a Burnley product, right? So they do teach that there.
But that's a big change. I mean, only 26% of shots were blocked, us defensively. So it is a little bit of a twist, right? Can we talk about the goalkeeping, though? Because that's the one thing. We talk about the defending was good collectively, but, I mean, the goals against numbers have been lower than the XGA. I think there's a good reason why.
Yeah, and it's a player who seems like the media are doing everything in their power to avoid giving this man credit for the season he just had. I think everyone at this point, maybe you haven't, but I think it was the Guardian or maybe the Athletic with giving Nick Pope keeper of the season. They're like
the alternative awards.
Yeah, normally we'd award it to the best shot stopper. But
hilarious.
We're gonna give it to the best sweeper keeper this season. Blah blah blah. Anyway, we know Pickford had an amazing year and has had a run of several amazing years and has been a huge part of Everton still being a Premier League club going into the stadium next year. But we just want to drive that home. 73% save percentage, good for fifth. 2 penalties faced and saved both of them, which absolutely amazing. I remember both of them vividly. They were magical moments. His post-shot XG plus minus, which is basically a fancy way to say like goals prevented measured in XG, was 4.8, which is good for third in the league. He was amazing, maybe second in the league. Only
the
Ederson
team was
higher.
third.
Team, yes. I mean, it's effectively a team stat. Ederson was higher, so only Ederson. Y-Scout has Pickford at sixth in that. Sells, who we know had a great year. Flecken also. Sanchez, Ryan, Neto above him. But Neto only played twice, so you kind of got to write that off. But in good company among some pretty good keepers. Pick basically ranked fourth in their index for Y-Scout, but he's first in our hearts. We'll put it that way.
I don't know how Sells or Flecken weren't chosen over Nick Pope for Keeper of the Year. So, I mean, that just...
guys were unconscious
I mean, even
at times.
Pickford, right? But, like, to kind of give some unbiased takes, like, I don't know how they got to Nick Pope.
They're bored. They wanted to come up with an alternative stat or something silly. Like,
well, did you see Tark got, like, best 11 of like the FB ref or what? Who scores?
All of them. Sofa score too. Like all the algorithms.
When we get to Tark's numbers, we talk about center backs. They are
just
impressive.
Really funny.
But it's funny. Yeah, he didn't lead the league in blocks. I mean, it's. All right. So some of these other defensive numbers, getting into it, like the measure of us pressuring, the PPDA number. Look it up if you like. I'm not going to walk through it, but 19th, we just didn't pressure much. Challenge intensity. That's when always people think that Dyche's teams kick people. They really don't. This is not Getafe, and it's a measure of duels, tackles, and interceptions per minutes of opponent's possession. We're 18th. I'd like to see us be a little more combative, really. Free up Ghana to go tackle a little bit more if that's possible. 7th most in fouls. That's not a bad thing. Shockingly, Ghana was 10th in the league in fouls. Decore with 20th. Ghana with 9 yellows is only 18th. You kind of think about it. You're like, interesting. Defensive duels. So I actually think this is an interesting stat, an important one. I think most of this stuff is FOTMob. We were 7th with 61.9 per 90, but that's just a more measure. We didn't have the ball a lot, but I love the win rate here. 62.4% win rate in duels. And, our guys are big, tough. We win a lot of battles. I mean, Ghana won the 12th most duels in the league, 281. Some of these percentages are impressive, too. Are you surprised at any of these JB and Tark numbers?
Not at all. We knew what a fantastic pairing. Really tough to get through that pairing most of the season. Branthwaite at 72.3% dual win rate, 15th. Tark at just behind him, almost 71%, 19th in the league. I mean, they were a problem for attackers all year.
I will say I'm a little bit surprised that Tark, just because I think for someone that's limited with his pace, of course, and I also think he didn't really have the greatest start to the season, right, as we've kind of talked about. So for him, and I imagine that number, if we kind of, peeled the onion, that we'd probably see that he really had a much better second half of the year. So I'd probably think that percentage is even higher. But yeah, credit to him, right? Because I think for a limited guy in regards to some of he does do a good job of putting himself in positions to win the ball.
I think that dynamic is probably better, Sean, if JB's
sure.
got more freedom to make plays. You saw it at the end, too, where Keane sat back and was more of a box defender against Newcastle.
Yeah.
And Jake was flying around making plays, I think that's decent chemistry. It'd be very interesting to play a higher line with JB and Jake together, wouldn't it?
I like the sound of that.
I mean, big, fast dudes, man. And I don't think anyone would fare very well in some fisticuffs either. My goodness, that's some serious size and pace. Some of the volume numbers here are kind of funny. The one is shocking to me, by the way.
Tim coming in 16th in duels per 90. The dude's combative. We know that. But almost 10 per 90? That's kind of wild. We know his minutes were somewhat limited, so it's probably, inflated a little bit. And the conditions in which he was coming into games kind of run around, cause chaos, just get into the opposition. Lindstrom also, though, 24th with 8.9 per 90, and he was playing starting games consistently. I mean, that says a lot for a guy, especially, not the biggest guy. You wouldn't expect him to be super combative, but he was getting into the mix.
It makes you think a little, right, about Alone, maybe, right?
Do we think, though, for duels that 9 of those duels were with Ryan?
Possibly, yeah. For Tim,
on the Tim standpoint, not Jesper. Yeah.
At
Just
least
to be clear.
half. At least half.
Yeah.
I've been clear about what Tim is good at and what he is bad at. Him running around like a maniac with some freedom to win the ball and kick people, I think is great. The guy's a phenomenal athlete. So that number doesn't surprise me. The Linzer number is inexcusable, though. How can you have a right wing battling guys as much as he is? That's just crazy. Shocker, we had the most aerial duels per 90 in the league. Shocker, right? Win rate was almost 47%, 6th. That's pretty impressive.
Tall. Hashtag tall.
Oh, and it's offensive duels, too, that make the big difference. I mean, DCL with the 6th most, Beto at 8th, Tark at 14th. 50 of Tark's aerials were in his own penalty area, 2nd in the league, which, I mean, he's a great box defender, no question. And that's why his usefulness, even if, say Jake supplants him, that's okay. He could still be useful. And especially if we're sitting back defending in a back 3-man, good luck playing against those guys. Us countering with those guys, with space ahead of us, with guys with pace, man, that's when we're defending, like just burying goals against teams trying to push up against us. I'm all for that.
I'm licking my lips over here.
Oh man, just NJ on one side, Charly running with the ball low, and some bullet on the right side, and Beto running in behind and just beating on people. Sign me up, baby. Some of the win rates, Tark 6th in the league at almost 66%. Keane at 8th, not surprising. Another good box defender and no own goals, we said. JB 11th. I mean, these guys, you're just playing it into a wall. And I think that's a lot of reason why the defending was good. Because it wasn't all block shots this time. A lot of it was playing into them, set-piece defense, all of it. Yeah, I mean, the win rate in the penalty area, too. JB and Tark at 10th and 12th, right? Not a surprise. One thing that was a little surprising for me is, and maybe this is how it was and why we were better, is we're a little more aggressive, I think, on defense this year. Interceptions, we're 7th in the league per 90. 3rd in the league in FB Ref. Both those sources measure it a little bit differently. Tim Irabunum, over 6 per 90, 8th in the league. Tark at 12th. And Sean, I think that speaks to it, right? I think earlier in the year, he really had to step up and make plays. I mean, 6th in the whole league. JB was 28th, Mikalenko at 30th. So it just goes to show you we're a little more aggressive in the back. Now, granted, we couldn't progress the ball up the field worth a darn, but like you start getting some of this feel, playing a little bit more aggressive and guys that can take it. I mean, the back line looks good, right? I mean, passes blocked. I mean, we were a little disruptive, 15th, blah, blah, blah. Progressive passes allowed. Njai and Harrison were 7th and 6th. P90, Harrison and Lindstrom, 1 and 2 in the league in progressive passes allowed. So look, when they got to our back line, they ran into a wall, right? Little too easy for them to get at them, right?
Yeah, and this stat, I think, especially for someone like Jack, right, who I mean, it's very DCLS too. There are certain places, right, where there are kind of stats that underline the importance of them as a player. And I think for Jack, the defensive contributions, right, are why he played under both managers, even if he was struggling kind of, on the quality side of things on the offensive end. So as well as Jesper, right, as we talked, it's just he really kind of took to whatever it took to play under Dyche, right? And so part of that, right, was that defensive contribution, and he absolutely was working his tail off, right, to help defend, especially when we were in a lower block.
And that's what this team required, right, Sean? So that is to their credit. But naturally, as a team, you don't want the whole right side of your. I mean, think about it. That's just handing them the ball in front of you, typically. That's not getting passed behind you necessarily. That's permitting them to make longer passes. It's just. And also some of it's Dyche to the way he'd play, allowing the teams to reverse the ball on the other side, playing compact. And when you're pinching in your winger, it's just not effective. Recovery's only 14th. I'd like to see us be a little more aggressive. I mean, Gana was 17th, Njai 19th. How much defensive work was he putting in? Decore's always high, but you know what I mean? How many times you remember Njai doubling back and stealing a loose ball from his own end? I mean, way too often. Gana breaking up things on the break, scooping it up in front of those back line guys that are winning balls and tools. Tim's was super high, not a surprise. And this was different and a little better under Moyes. So, okay, tackles. Tackles is normally a byproduct of us not having the ball. So we were 4th in tackles won. Guess who was first in the league?
Player of the season, player of the season, Gana Gueye.
Credit to Munoz, how good he was, by the way, at right back for Palace, right? Dribblers tackled, 6th in the league. Gana was 2nd. Percentages. The percentages of dribble tacklers, I mean, are you kidding me? JB was 12th in the league at 71%. Jake was 23rd at 68%. Those two guys playing in the back, have fun running at those guys. And some of the worst in the league, Decore, Jack, and Lindstrom, just shows they were out on their own. You know what I mean? You can't defend like that. But when you got to the back line, man, you got stuffed.
Having to defend a lot more space too, right? Teams are coming at
so
us
hard.
And they're all over the place. And I would not envy any attacker in the league having to try to match the combination of size and strength of Jake and Jared. It's crazy.
And look, dribbled pass numbers. I expect Gana to have a lot because he's engaging a lot of tackles. Lindstrom was 17th in dribbled pass and Jack 35th. That's just way too much defensive engagement for wingers. So for me, that says it all. To me, defensively, it's just too much being asked to the right side with no commensurate offensive contribution. And part of that is not having a right back that could just shut people down. Ashley Young did his best out there, but when Jake went out there, it was a little bit easier. But even then, those guys didn't get up the pitch as much as you would like them to do. I do think it would be different if Lindstrom was still in there when we kind of went on that run a little bit longer. Might have been different, maybe, but still not ideal overall, right?
Yeah, I think it would be vastly different. I think that's a really good point because unfortunately it's a shame for him because he was kind of injured at the peak time of where we were playing some really kind of solid football. And especially with Jake being at right back, it just gave a layer of protection as well as even a layer of service, right? Because we were so complimentary of Jake being much better in terms of his crossing ability and kind of his, overlap. As he continued to learn the position. So, yeah, I definitely think Jesper would have had a lot less defensive contribution, and we probably would have saw, some of the kind of tools and talents, right, that he's capable of.
Yeah, and I think just with regard to the fullbacks, right, we get into this situation where we have personnel who are just more defensively inclined, and so you make the trade-off of losing the offensive production. But, it's important to note that in the modern game, you can get both out of a player if you have the right personnel, the right talent there. It doesn't have to be we sacrifice the offensive output of our fullbacks so that they can stay back and play defense. There is something a little bit to that, but I think it's just a limitation of the people we had where defense was always going to be the number one priority.
Well, I mean, Dice chose to defend with wingers rather than push a fullback up and have a defensive mid cover for them. Now, Moyes plays differently, and you saw it differently, but he's still limited with his personnel. I mean, and that's the truth. That's the truth. I mean, you got to have guys that can cover more ground and be more dynamic. I mean, that's part of it. You know, we didn't have a lot of pace in this side, really. I mean, to Jesper's credit, he's fast as can be and was working hard on defense, but, you know, you can only run so fast. You know, you can't shoot him out of a cannon to get into the attacking third. All right, look, we've gone through a lot of numbers. A lot of individual dissection, shall I say. I think we've done enough work to set ourselves up for kind of the position by position stuff. But first, let's kind of take a step back here, peel the onion back, and summarize. I think there's some pretty obvious points that came out of this that's going to really dictate, you know, where we need to improve the squad. And it's a lot of areas. There are some strength, but I think there's some obvious takeaways. The first one is, look, the attack just isn't good enough, right? But it was the same even with the style of play under Moyes, right? It just serious needs an attack, both in personnel, and it's a fluid game, right? So a lot of this has to do with other things as well. Do we agree? And I think summarize why, I think we've learned a couple different things in terms of retention and progression that supports these ideas, right?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think the comforting thing, and of course we'll get to it, is we have some attacking talent, right? You look at Charly, you look at Njai, you look at Beto. So I think those are guys, right, where you could plug those in and with a few better players around them, or players that can provide some pace and dynamism as well as some skill. And of course we'll get into that as we go into kind of this deep dive. But yeah, the attack was just bad, and I credit David Moyes for getting as much out of this as he possibly could with the current personnel that we had.
Right, and with those guys that are dangerous, right, I mean, to me, we've got to retain the ball better so that those guys aren't constantly defending, as well as getting some better players now that are more attack-minded up. But look, we also need not just possession, but we need better progression from the fullbacks or center mids. You can't rely on Njai to drop back and beat everyone every time. We need to get him, Charly, Beto, and whoever else we bring in, some attacking talent closer to goal to score more goals. Certainly we need more open play creation even when we do break into it. You can't rely on Charly to do it all from open play, right? So we need more of that. Part of that's contributing, getting guys closer to goal. Look, 1v1 guys, I mean,
give me a couple more Njais who are actually capable of threatening a defense, that draw double teams, that disrupt a defensive shape. Like, that will go a long way to helping us be better on the attacking end as far as output.
Yeah, I want one of those guys on the right side, right? Maybe guys that can just do it with pace from fullback. That being said, the one thing that's obvious that I felt like Gana was an absolute Band-Aid in the second half of the year under Moyes. Like, that's fine. Even when we did get up, you cannot be solely reliant on one defensive mid winning the ball back constantly. And to me, like, James Garner's a solid dude where, like, you come at him, he's going to be sturdy. He'll win his battles. I actually like him pressing higher, probably better than anything. But the bottom line is, like, you can't have Gana cover from everyone. Like, and Moyes likes to play those two defensive mids. If you can find him a partner that can cover the same amount of ground, that can win battles as well, maybe even free him up to win the ball higher. We've got two center backs that can play higher. Imagine having some athletes in the wide areas that could do it a little bit more. Even with Mikalenko, maybe you morph over into the three and push the right back higher. Just more athleticism that can do more damage in open space, or at least recover when we push guys up so we're not totally gashed and we're afraid to go forward. But look, there's also a big positive. The defense behind him, the center backs, the goalkeeper, and Gana in front of them. Guys, that spine is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, to have two really great young center backs, right? And I don't think any fan takes it for granted. Both of them, both Jake and Jared, and we hope to have both of them. Definitely, Jared's kind of the one of concern going into next season. But even somebody like Tark, right, is still a great option to have. So, you know, when we think of, we're so kind of longing for attackers and whatnot, it's just nice to kind of sleep at night knowing that the center backs as well as the goalkeeper of our team are both very sturdy. And even like somebody like Mikalenko, he's limited, right? But he's sturdy in defense. So yeah, for sure. Like it's a good feeling to know And then also too, right? Just because these guys are limited in attack does not mean that they don't hustle defensively and don't contribute, right? And that kind of goes for a fragile squad, as some classify us. This squad to me is nothing but fragile.
No, and look, hats off to these guys. I mean, these guys, even some of the guys that left, put it in. I mean, what a difficult situation to be in. We could be dead in the water as a club at this point. They deserve all the credit in the world. I don't think there was ever a lack of effort, right?
No, never. Anyone saying that is so detached from reality. These guys carried us over the line into the new stadium. And I think the other thing that I take a lot of consolation from this year is, like, obviously attack's bad. There's a lot of opportunities to improve the squad, but even with all those deficiencies, performed pretty well. And I think also that Moyes will have, I think he'd probably agree with a lot of the assessment that we've done thus far, particularly around like retaining the ball better to allow the team to have more control over games. Like, I think he may not, recruit the exact right personnel that we'd like to see. Well, that is still a total question mark for us, but I think he understands where the squad needs to improve, at least in a general sense. And I think he'll recruit guys. I think we'll have the cash and the ability to actually improve, because we've done these squad assessments now for years. And, candidly, a lot of these problems have persisted year over year, and the defense has improved, but now we finally have the resources to actually address them in a meaningful way, and I think that's why everyone's so excited about what this summer could bring.
All right, so now that being said, that was a lot. It is the team assessment. I don't know what you expect, folks. If you're a listener, you know it by now. So what we normally do right after this is we take all that wonderful information, all the things we've learned about this team, the dissection, the analysis. That's what we are, right? Isn't that in the name somewhere? Analysis?
Yeah, it is. It
right,
is.
Right. I think Everton's in there too, so that works out. That's very on brand. And then we're going in position by position. The first position we're going to start with is center forward. Now, we're about to wrap up here, folks. I just want to give a little bit of teaser here. We're going to talk about things. We're going to say, okay, how is our current personnel? We got Beto and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We got Tremedy. We're going to go through the Y-Scout indexes. Do we have anyone in the top 30 strikers in the league? Guess what? We do. We do. You never guess who they are. Okay, you might. I'm going to go through my ID models. I've got some Excel models that I create within Y-Scout, spits it out. It's normally for ID, more style of play thing, but it's kind of fun to play with. We do this every year too. I'll get through Beto, DCL. Let me give you a hint. Broja's numbers aren't good. Just FYI. And we'll break these guys down a little bit, but we'll ask some questions about the position. And guess what? We'll talk about Liam Delap. But no, the game plan is we'll look at freeze. We still got to do that. We'll talk about profiles. We'll talk about relegation players. We'll go through all of them, not just the Premier League, folks. Do you want to know if Patson Daka is the right guy for Everton? We'll answer that question. We're going to pull out some good contract expiring guys in the center forward position. Already could see it. Might even talk about some other guys. We'll talk about loans. Yes, we'll talk about Evan Ferguson. And we'll talk about the general idea. We even look at North American players. And that's the idea, folks, for the remaining episodes. We're going to finish the team assessment off. We're going to crunch the individual numbers, give you a depiction and all sorts of fun names. I'm staring at them right now. I'm excited to go into it, guys, but we're going to have to table this conversation till the next one.
Yeah, I just want to say one quick thing and give a special shout out to Ryan. There are so many names on this, and I say that in like the greatest way because I'm excited to kind of just chop it up with the guys, and I think this will be a really worthwhile and probably the most kind of in the history of ATP and the Blue Frontier. I don't think there will be a team assessment and as well as a kind of a deep dive analysis as big as this one.
Can I tease another name?
Sure.
Give you a hint. He's currently playing in the Saudi League. Striker. His contract's expiring.
Ryan's salivating at the prospect of this team assessment. And I agree, Sean. I mean, we've done a lot of these.
We're going to beat out Inter Miami.
Yeah. You guys might put two and two together and figure out who he's talking about. This is going to be, we'll probably break this up into, I don't even know how many parts. I won't even speculate here, but it's going to be a really fun series. And I think, if you're looking for a more thorough analysis of the potential market that Everton might be in, you're not going to find it anywhere else. And I'd put my word on that because Ryan is a machine. He's many things, but a machine is one of them. And we're looking forward to getting into the names and all the details and a lot of really good discussion in the coming episodes. So it's going to be a fun summer. We're going to try to get it out before these links start actually materializing so we can check our work as reality starts to come into play. But for the time being, it's fun to speculate and it's fun to hypothesize what Everton might do. So we're looking forward to it, as I've said 10 times at this point. But I think that's going to do it for this episode. This is a monster in itself. Hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, let us know. Reach out. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any feedback for us, leave us a rating and review as well. We appreciate it.
Ricardo Pepe.
He's just throwing names in. He's just throwing. Yeah, we got some. He said we got Americans. We got Americans. You wouldn't even believe. It's going to be red, white, and blue. Maybe not the red part. We'll leave the red part out. But it's going to be an extravaganza. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Again, rating, review, follow us on socials. Join our Discord for sure, because probably a lot of this material will make its way in some way, shape, or form into the Discord. And we'd love to have a very robust discussion with our fantastic community. But we're going to leave it here for now. Thank you, everyone, very much. Until next time, up the Toffees.
Joaquin Correa.